Hi, good day, everybody. So today we're going to be talking about reading a micrometer. So micrometer is one of the most accurate tools that we can use in the shop for measurement. They can all read up to 1/1000th of an inch, 0.001 of an inch. If it's equipped with what's called a vernier scale, it can read to 1/10,000th of an inch, 0.0001 of an inch. So micrometers typically have a 1-inch range, meaning that they can read a 1-inch segment of something. So this particular little guy right here is called a 0 to 1 mic, meaning that it can read from 0 inches up to 1 inch. If I have to measure a part that's bigger than that, then I'm going to get another micrometer. This particular one is called a 1 to 2 mic, meaning that it starts at 1 inch, and you can see this gap here, and then it reads from 1 inch to 2 inches. So depending on the micrometer, the size I need to measure is going to determine which micrometer I need to use. So let's jump into these here, and let's look at this illustration of a micrometer here and talk a little bit about some of the components to it. So we have the frame here. The frame is usually going to tell us some information about the micrometer. This particular one happens to be in metric, but most of them are going to have the range to which they can measure. Is it a 0 to 1, a 1 to 2, 2 to 3? And then it's also going to have the degree of accuracy that it can read to. So is it, does it have a vernier scale? Can it read to 1/10,000th of an inch, or is it only reading to 1/1000th of an inch? Up here is the anvil and the spindle. The spindle moves in and out of the frame here to close around our part. Anvils and spindles, we need to make sure that they remain clean and free of debris. If I have dirt on my anvil or my spindle face when I close this, we're reading to such a fine degree of accuracy here that some dirt on here could cause an error in my measurement. So I want to make sure that this is clean. I find the easiest way to do that is just to take your micrometer and close it on a piece of paper and then slide it off. And then you'll see some of that, usually see some dirt and debris that comes off with it. So that can affect your measurements, your accuracy. Additionally, when we store these, we want to store them open. We don't want to form rust in between these two sections here. So we want to store it open and keep them clean. Next up, we have our locking nut. Now this just allows us to lock the spindle from moving in and out. Say we have to reach in and take a measurement, we need to pull that micrometer out and look at it. We don't want to accidentally bump the thimble and have it move around on us. So some of them have them, some of them don't. That's a lever lock. My little Starrett one doesn't have one. This bigger Starrett one, this one has a little roll lock, so you twist the top here and it locks it. So some may have them, some may not. The next section here is the sleeve, and this is where we're going to look at a lot of our measurements at. It's kind of hidden here, but as we roll back the thimble, more lines and numbers are exposed. We'll look at that in a second. We have the thimble here. This is the rotating part, and this is what allows our spindle to move in and out. It also has some measurements on there that we'll be using. And then the very back part here, on some of them, they're equipped with a ratchet. This one doesn't have a ratchet on it. My larger one has a ratchet on it. And ratchets are useful when you're first learning how to use a micrometer. And what a ratchet does, it allows us to put just the same amount of force on our part each and every time we go to take a measurement. And why is that important? It's important because you can get the measurement that you want with a micrometer. And what do I mean by that? If you have, let's say you're making a part and it has to be a 1/2 inch, so 500,000ths of an inch. I make the part and I take my micrometer and I come down to my part and say it reads 3/1000ths of an inch over. I can actually take that because 3/1000 of an inch is very, very small number. We can actually force that spindle close more, that 3/1000ths of an inch, and get the measurement that we actually want. And that's not good because that's not how big our part is. Our part was 3/1000ths bigger. And so we need to develop a very kind of fine finesse when it comes to closing these things so that we make sure that closing very consistent and very gently on our part. If you have a ratchet, it just allows you to go to that same consistent pressure each and every time without having to worry about over tightening or under tightening. And when you use the ratchet, you never open it up with the ratchet. We only close with the ratchet. And when you go to close, you don't have to sit there and just ratchet with this thing. Just a couple clicks, that's enough to put the force that you need on the part. So let's look at the thimble and the sleeve. Now on the thimble and the sleeve, there are some numbers and some lines, and we're going to be using these lines in order to make our measurements. So the first thing that we're going to look at here, this is called the read line, and this is the line that we're going to use to make our measurements with the thimble. So we're coming down the center line, and each of these lines right here are worth 25 thousandths of an inch. So you can notice that in 25 we say as 0.025. Okay, so there's 0, 25, 50, 75, 100. So these larger lines are worth 100 thousandths of an inch, 100. That's how much those ones are worth. And then around the thimble here, this is going to rotate. Each one of these lines is worth 1,000th of an inch, 0.001 of an inch around the outside. So what I like to do is I like to break this down when I'm measuring it, and break it down into 3 parts right now. We're going to break it down to 4 parts later on when we measure to 1/10,000th of an inch. But right now we're just going to measure to 1,000th of an inch. And we're going to break this down into 3 parts. And this is how I like to do this. So the first thing I like to do is look at the sleeve. And we're going to read the sleeve first here. These are our larger numbers, or our larger measurements that we're going to take. We're going to look at the sleeve and we're going to say how many 100 thousandths are showing. So how many numbers are showing. And in this instance, we only have 1. So I'm going to jot that number down, 0.100. Okay, if we had 2 showing, I would be 200 thousandths, 0.200. And then after that, I'm going to count after that 100, how many intermediate lines do I have showing? So in this instance, I have 1, 2, 3 intermediate lines. Those are worth 25 thousandths apiece. So total, that's worth 0.075, 75 thousandths of an inch, okay? Once I've gotten those 2 areas read, the 100 thousandths and the 25 thousandths intermediate lines, then I'm going to switch over to the thimble. And I'm going to look at my read line, and I'm going to see which number lines up with the thimble. Now in this instance, it's lined up with 0. So we can just put 0.000 here, okay? We total that up, 175 thousandths. Now, one thing that's important to remember is that depending on the range of your micrometer, you might have something before the decimal point over here. So this small micrometer we're using is a 0 to 1, meaning from 0 to 1 inch. So we're going to put the smaller number at the front here. So 0, and then obviously if we would have gone all the way up, it would be a 1 inch. If we had this micrometer, we're using the larger micrometer, the lower range of this scale is 1. So it will be 1.175, okay, all the way up to 2 inches. Now, when it comes to reading the thimble here, there are times that your read line here is going to come kind of in between these 2 lines. And what we use that in that time is we just go back. Okay, we never count what we haven't gotten to yet. So if this read line was right in here, we wouldn't count the 1, we would count the 0 again. So, and I'll show you why we would do that when we're reading 1/10,000th of an inch, but we don't count it until we got it. So there's something that you need to be careful with though, and that is looking at these lines. And what I mean by that is, if we look at this, this illustration right here, you'll notice that we very clearly have 400 thousandths, and we very clearly see 4 lines, just like we did before. But remember that this thimble has 25 graduations on it, meaning that 1 full revolution of that dial advances the spindle 25 thousandths of an inch. So if I'm parked on 0 and I go 1 full revolution, then I've gone 25 thousandths of an inch, exposing this 1/25 thousandth line. But if you look at this illustration right here, we very clearly see 2 intermediate lines here. But you notice that as the thimbles come around, here's 0, and we haven't gotten to 0 yet. So until we've gotten to this 0 part, we can't count this line. So this line is going to start showing up when we start getting around maybe 15 thousandths or so. You're going to start seeing hints of this line. But we can't count this until it's gone all the way back to the 0. So in this instance, if we look at this one, we'll start with our range, right? So let's just say that we're using the bigger micrometer. So it's a 1 to 2 mic. So we're going to start with a 1 point. And then we're going to read how many 100,000ths we have showing. We have 4 showing. So that's 0.400. And then we're going to read our intermediate lines. So in this instance, we're looking, we see, oh, we have 2, but wait, that second one, we haven't gotten all the way around to 0 yet. So we can only count this one line. So we're going to say 0.025, 25 thousandths of an inch. And then we're going to count the thimble. If we look at our read line right here, the line that lines up with it is 23. And that's worth 0.023 of an inch. So if we total this up, 1 inch, 448 thousandths. It's been a long day. 1 inch, 448 thousandths of an inch. So again, we can't count that one until we've gotten to it. Let me clear all my annotations here. Oh, that's weird. That's actually doing it off of my. Ooh. Okay, so now let's look at what's called the vernier scale. And the vernier scale allows us to read to 1/10,000th of an inch. So you'll notice at the bottom here, we've already done the first section, reading to a 1/1000th of an inch. Now we're going to continue on, and we're going to roll our micrometer back. So if you have a vernier scale, it's going to be on kind of the upper portion of your micrometer scale, so above the 100,000 line marks there. And so what we do is we just kind of roll back the micrometer and look at it. And what we're going to do is you'll see this series of numbers over here. And these series of numbers are the 10,000th spot, always the 4th decimal. So when we're reading to the 10,000ths of an inch using the vernier scale, we're going to read the beginning just like we did before in the previous one, okay? We're going to read to the 1,000th of an inch. And then we're going to roll it back, and we're going to look at this vernier scale, and we're going to put the 4th decimal place in there, okay? So you don't add that to the other 3 digits. It's always the 4th decimal place. And how this scale works is we have our numbers here, and we're going to look and see which line best lines up with something on the thimble. So if you notice in this, if we look at the 5, the matching line on the thimble is way far off. The 4, it's way far off. It's getting closer as we get to the 3, getting pretty close as we get to the 2, but when we get to the 1, it's directly in line with this line. So we're going to use this one as our 4th decimal place. Now we don't use the 5 over here. We're using this number over here, okay? So we're using the number on the vernier scale, not on the thimble. We're just using the lines on the thimble as a reference, okay? So if we look at this one right here, this is actually kind of hard to read, and I have some other demonstrations we'll look at here in a little bit, which illustrate it. But we have, whatever the range is. So if this is a 0 to 1 mic, we have, let me annotate this here. We have 0.000. That's our 100,000, or our range of our micrometer. And then if you notice down here, we have 400,000, 0.400. It looks like we have 3 intermediate lines showing, so that would be 0.075. And then it looks like it's right on the 0 mark, so that would be 0.000 for our 1,000th mark. So all of this totaled up will be 475 thousandths. And then all we're going to do now is look at the vernier scale and say, oh, the one that best lines up with this line is the 1, so we're going to plop that on the back end there, okay? It's always the 4th decimal place. So this would be 445 thousandths and 1/10. So let's look at some additional ones here. So in this instance right here, we'd have 300,000 showing, right? So we have the range of our mic. So whatever the range of our mic is, our first one that we would go through, we have 300,000 showing, so 300. Then how many intermediate lines do we have showing? In this instance, we have 0, so 000. And then how many move to the thimble? How many lines do we have on the thimble? On the read line here, it's 10, so 0.010. 310 thousandths. Okay, so now if we look at this, we have a picture of this is the front side and the back side. So we have our main scale right here that'll give us down to a thousandth, and then we have our vernier scale back here. So same thing, we'll start over here. Let's do the range of the mic. Let's say this is a 1 to 2 mic, so we're going to say 1.000. How many hundred thousandths do we have showing? We have 6, so 0.600. How many intermediate lines do we have showing? We have 2. We can see that we've gone past the 0, right? So we're past 0, so we can count this line. So that'll be 0.050. And then we move over to the thimble here for our thousandths line, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 in with the read line, so 0.004. Total this up, 4, 5, 6, 1 there. So 1 inch, 654 thousandths. And then I'm going to roll it over and look at the back and figure out which line best lines up. 6, no. 7, no. 8, no. 9, no. 0. Okay, and 0 is a number, because if we're talking into the 10,000ths of an inch, if our tolerances are, 0 10,000ths of an inch, you got to be right there, then that is perfectly a suitable number. So this is 1 inch, 654 thousandths, and 0 10,000ths of an inch. Okay, so let's see if you guys can do this one by yourself. And this one. Okay, I hope that that explained how to read a micrometer to you. If we get back in class and we start working with these, we will do a lot of measurements with these micrometers. So again, one of the more accurate measuring tools that we have in the shop, and very useful, very accurate. They do take a little bit of getting used to on how to read and how to express the measurements. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon.